Do you enjoy pain? How about reliving some of your past mistakes and most embarrassing moments? Well, apparently I do, and that's why I've brought JB79 on to watch some of my manual PvP matches from the current class match. He's going to be critiquing some of the decisions I made and offer suggestions on what I could have done better. Now, in an ideal world, he'll have no critique for me, but I think we both know that's not going to be the case. So with all that said, welcome in, JB. How you doing, buddy?
I'm ready for a long video here. Got a lot to say. I'll tell you what.
Oh,
totally kidding.
Okay?
Totally no, no, I'm doing good. I'm excited. I remember you did one of these a really long time ago with Prodigy, and I loved that video when you did it at the time. So I'm excited to kind of carry that torch and hopefully kind of help not only you, but help some people out there that might be interested in getting into manual. And yeah, so that's kind of the idea behind it.
Totally. And you know what? When you get into manual, there's so much trial by fire because you just don't know all the stuff that you have to know. And guess what? All of your opponents know it. And I think kind of funny that we had these two huge collaborations where people were entering the game like you wouldn't believe, from Full Metal Alchemist and from Final Fantasy VII. And guess what? They get their very first CM. I believe it's their first CM, at least since Full Metal Alchemist. And everybody gets bounced down to bronze, and you're matching up against incredibly tough opponents, and it can be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, there was kind of a false start there. They did announce that they were going to reset the rankings, but then the season started and somehow that got lost. And then a couple of days later, they decided to reset it. But yeah, definitely that kind of, everybody's starting over again. So, the matchmaking is a little bit more kind of Wild West. And yeah, you can get, a wide range of opponents. So yeah, you can definitely take some lumps, if you're still trying to learn the game.
So let's take a look at what I did right, for the most part, and then if you feel like it, you can mention a few things I did wrong.
So I have a few videos that Mysidia passed over to me. I've gone through them. I've kind of analyzed it, and yeah, so we're going to start with this one. This was from day 3 of CM. But before we actually get into the video, why don't you actually, Mysidia, why don't you just tell us about your composition?
Right, of course. So this was a team that I kind of built on stream with some viewers, which was pretty fun. And the idea here is that I really wanted to use Hio because he's one of my favorite fire units. And so I also kind of thought, well, I'd actually really like to use Minwoo because she's also very cool. Now, she doesn't have full life like Naya does, and some people really prefer that lower cost unit so you get more room to put in another carry, but I really wanted to make those two units work. So then I was kind of figuring out who I could actually put in as the third unit, and I ended up going with Seymour because he brings a lot to the table in terms of mobility. He has power, but he also has Steel Heart, which I think is pretty impactful. And then he can also hold the King Rob's Tiamara, so he can Keenblade, which for people that don't know is a way of just accelerating your CT and taking more turns. So he's kind of like a utility pick. You can't think of him as another carry on your team. And I actually faced a pretty staggering amount of evasion teams from not even just fire evade, like light evade as well. And Seymour was pretty clutch in those fights.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop it right away. And it's kind of my first lesson, I would say. So immediately when you kind of see who you're lined up against, this is already kind of when you can start formulating your strategy, kind of get intel on the opponent. If I stop the screen here for you now, and you look at your opponent, Archangel here, what are your immediate thoughts?
I'll tell you, at the time, I was so excited because it was another fire. It was like my first match with this team. There was another fire team. They were also using Minwoo. They were using Roy. I was so pumped. So I didn't think enough. But what you could think about is all of a sudden they've got 2 units that can cast haste, and they've got a unit that has a 6 square damage attack with a lot of firepower. So this team on a short map is probably going to be going quite fast and could close the distance really quickly. So you have to start counting tiles right away. I don't think that with a team like this, you can either give them too much time to buff up or sit back for too long.
So you mentioned the 6 tile range that Roy, he does have that. So that's good to know right off the bat. You could also notice that, there's not a lot of mobility for this team, right? All of the units are going to be at a 3 range of movement. You have 1 quickener and healer, main healer, I should say, in Minwoo. And then you have a couple of damage dealers, and then Adelard, he can do, a little bit of support too. You mentioned the haste and some healing there too. So yeah, it's let's jump into the match here.
And so one thing we can kind of say, if you're brand new, we are not in the regular starting points. So it's kind of hidden away in the game, but you can actually change your starting formation.
So this is kind of, another thing that's really important about manual play is kind of having some, it's almost like a, your initial turns are almost like a choreographed kind of, dance, I would say. You kind of have some idea of your initial turns, how they might go, what buffs you're going to use, what order they're going to be going in. And, I noticed in your matches, this was kind of your normal cadence here. You would start Minwoo off with this, with Velus's TMR, which is good. Both of these units, they kind of have some struggles with AP, so that's good tech for them to have access to.
Near the end, this changed really quickly. I think if you go at like the next match, I'll have Hio in that middle spot so that he can use a certain buff, which we'll see. But I'd switch the positions of Minwoo and Hio, but also with Minwoo, I started self-hasting a lot more often on the first turn, because then you can still hit the Frost Weave later on and maybe have that AP consumption run longer. But a lot of matches where I thought they might come at me really quickly, I thought, okay, better to get my AP solved first and then start slinging some hastes and quickens after.
No, so that's one thing that was my first point of feedback here, is that you're actually, what you do here, I'll let it go here for just so you do the buff, but then you also move with Minwoo, because then you have to get your next buff, which is going to be your Knight's Blessing, which for the barrier. So I think that, like exactly like you said, getting the haste online there early on Minwoo, having her sit in place and kind of get that turn economy, going quicker very early. Generally, that's a good approach, especially when you see that the other team is starting to buff, and kind of stay in place on their side. So then you have Seymour here. You kind of are getting some AP, just do a meditation there, and then you have him move forward. So you get your haste done here. You're getting some buffs online from Hio, the defense pen. So you notice here that, let me just walk that back a second. Here, you're actually already going to be moving into the enemy's range. That's one thing to think about when you kind of are looking at the turn order.
Yeah, and I don't think that's something that I considered enough.
Adelard could walk up and hit you with his jamming thrust, and Roy could walk up and hit you as well. So this was another thing here. So Seymour is your Keen Blade holder. Keen Blade, it's a very popular, probably the most popular TMR for manual play. Gives that AoE CT up to the team. So you notice there that you use that, and there wasn't really all that much difference in the turn order here.
Yeah.
So if we look at the turn order before, we kind of have Adelard and Minwoo, and then you're going to notice this isn't really going to change all that much. Basically, but before you actually use that Keen Blade, you want to make sure that you're actually getting like good value out of it. So you want to take a quick scan of like the enemy's CT and your own CT, and kind of see where that's going to put you, like in the turn order. Is it going to make you jump up? Is it going to maybe put you into a double turn situation? Things like that. So I would say don't use it to, just because it's something that you have and you think that you need to use it, but use it when the timing is right and when the timing is opportune, where you can use it to jump yourself forward in the turn order and maybe string off a couple of attacks consecutively.
Right. And so that is something that I didn't do a good job of for a while. Like there was a few fights where I keen bladed Minwoo ahead of her own cast. And then when you do that and you get your turn before your cast is over, you have to pass or cancel your cast. And it's pretty embarrassing. So I did that about 2 times before I kind of clued into what I was doing and I was counting incorrectly. But a lot of what I was doing too was learning by feel. So, which is obviously a terrible way to do it. But I will say that for new players, when the turn timer is counting down and you're trying to count CT, it's very stressful. So don't beat yourself up. You can learn over time, and you do have to lose some matches, and you can learn a bit by feel and kind of by formula as well, but what's working for you, but you won't be able to make huge improvements to your team or strategy unless you start counting those details. But it's just like what like pro athletes always say, where the game really slowed down for me that second year. And that's what's going to happen when you play more matches. The game's going to slow down. That 30 seconds is going to feel like a minute once you're used to using it.
No, I mean, practice is always, the best teacher, and, kind of learning by kind of just getting in there into the fire. And, that's what I did early on, and it's kind of compounded over time. So, some of the things that you were saying there is exactly some of the feedback that I had on some of these turns that we have coming up here. The other thing that I want to mention too is that, before you did this Keen Blade, you moved up with Hio, but you didn't actually move up as far as, he could potentially move. So that's actually another point of feedback. Like, you knew that, in the next turn you were going to be looking to use this Keen Blade maneuver. And in that case, I would say you would want to have the benefit of having that additional tile of movement potentially. Especially if you were, you were using that Keen Blade to spring yourself forward. He only has that 3 movement, so if he moves another 3 here, he may not be able to hit more than maybe 1, maybe 2 of those enemy teammates. So something else to kind of consider, like when you're setting these plays up, is, where is your movement going to be when that CT comes in and you get your next turn?
That's great advice that I did not factor in.
I think that you were trying to catch both units there in the Keen Blade, which is fine, but don't feel like you always have to do that. Sometimes just having the 2 attack units get it is fine enough.
Totally, and that's exactly what I was looking. So now I'm checking my cast times here, seeing if I can line up a quicken. So the quicken will come off after somebody's turn, and it looks like I'm going for my Hio.
Yep. So here on the left, we can see Seymour's turns coming up, then Hio, and then the quicken. So your positioning there, you can see Roy was actually, you were saved there by the AoE resistance on the map. You can see there's just a sliver of health there for Seymour. So you get the charm here, which is fine, but it makes him waste a turn at least from his Minwu. It's not, he may have been able to quicken his Roy there and take you out.
Wow, can't believe you counter cured.
You get unlucky there with the counter cure.
But look how much AP I have, 81. Wow, problem solved.
Yeah, plenty of AP to do some damage here.
I should apologize to the viewers because your camera is blocking it, so that was my bad. But I can tell you guys stuff like that. So
you get the kill there, and now Minwu's coming up.
And so I didn't really take any time to consider what I could do there.
Yes, so this was, so you immediately kind of go for the heal there. My point here is I would say at least check if maybe you could have gotten a quicken there onto Seymour, because then you could have then used that to confirm the kill onto Minwu. I mean, there's a potential that you wouldn't have been able to get it off before Adelard's turn comes up, but you should at least check. You can check the CT or just set the cast in place and see where it's going to come out. If it doesn't look like it's going to be good, then kind of walk it back and do the heals. So always good to kind of consider other plays, other options that you might have, especially when you have a kill sitting there on a key unit that might be able to heal or that might be able to finish off one of your own units, because you can see the enemy's Minwu and Adelard's turn are both coming up right after yours. So I will kind of nitpick about this movement as well. So you decided, so you were on this tile on the steps, and you decide just to kind of move up 1 here. I don't know how much that helps you, right? Because you move here, you could have moved like here, or you could have moved here. And then the next turn, that would have put you into a better position to be able to quicken Hio. Because right now, if you move 3, you can't actually move there because your own unit's there. And you're not going to be in a position to quicken Hio because he's going to be more than 3 away. So you could have either sat in place and, you know, retain that 20 CT to put yourself in a quicker position to heal back any damage that they put onto you, or you could have considered moving over to one of these tiles so that you would have been in a better position to maybe get off a quicken on Minwoo's next turn. And I think that would have been a better use of your movement, because right now the enemy has they have two magical users. They're not going to be able to quickly take down Minwoo. She's very tanky against magical damage, so I think that would have been a safe play for you to go there at that point.
To get a little aggressive with my Minwoo, because then she can start attacking too. She's got some good range.
Right. Yeah, because right now have the upper hand at this point. You've already taken out one of his units. His Minwoo's you know, in a critical condition, so at that point you can try to close out the match, I think, and play a little bit more aggressively.
Yeah, so for any tennis players out there, I put Minwoo into no man's land. You can't volley, you can't hit from the baseline, you got nothing.
So it seems like a minor thing, but all of these things kind of add up, you know, every little movement, every CT that you decide to use or not use. So there you can see, even despite the heal, you know, Adelard's able to easily nuke him down. He still had the fire chain stack on him from Roy's attack.
They're pretty horrified of my Hio at this point. I think a lot of people in general were very... I had one person that I played mention, like, I was so scared of your Hio. I'm like, yeah, of course. And they're like, well, because I just didn't know anything. I didn't know any of his skills. I didn't know what he did.
I mean, in watching the footage, I was pretty impressed with his performance. I actually haven't used him much myself for manual, so
yeah, he's got a lot of utility on his kit that's very useful for manual, but then he also just has that choose to single target, which is so clutch.
For this particular rule set, it's a very nice move too.
Exactly.
With all the AoE resistance, like.
What do you think about that slow cast by them?
So it's not a bad it's not a bad play. I think that it was pretty. I think they're kind of going for a Hail Mary there. Even if they did land the slow, like, you know, your turn was going to be coming up, you know, relatively quickly anyway. So I don't know if that's the play I would have done. I probably would have either gone for the attack there and then hoped that Adelard can clean it up, or I would have maybe tried to back away and go for a heal. But at this point, those were kind of the major points that I had for this one. You're able to kind of close things down here and you know, take this match down. Yeah,
and at this point, I'm kind of figure that, you know, like at the end of certain matches, I'll rush a little bit more because it's really the only thing that could make me lose at this point is a disconnect.
Yeah. So that was good, the fire on fire matchup. But yeah, those were the kind of some of the themes actually that I was noticing through a couple of these matches here, at least in terms of like the opener, which, you know, as you mentioned, you kind of got a better feel for that as you kind of continued on with class match. So that's good to kind of recognize that yourself. The other thing is, you know, like I was saying, just be very kind of deliberate about your movement and try to consider other options. I know that can be hard in the moment, but that's where it's key to kind of make sure you're getting that full 30-second timer. Like, pull up your abilities, do a quick movement, then you have your full 30 seconds to consider, you know, the different paths that you can go with your turn.
Right. So, and I think if we do end up looking at some later matches, we'll see. I think that this match was a really early, you know, build for my team and early progression in my practice with this team. And I think I've definitely figured out quite a bit this CM in terms of how I play these units and also how to play things like Quicken and Keenblade. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. We're going to do a few more matches though, so those will also be up as videos and you can check those out, because right now we are gleaming secret wisdom from JB. He's got a lot to share. So thank you, JB, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Yep, it's been a blast.